Hey everybody, Adam Savage in my cave with 2024's roundup of my favorite things. I am reminded at this moment of the false convention of dates and times, right? I'm going over the last 12 months, but it is an arbitrary section of experience. Specifically, one of my favorite poems in the world is a John Donne poem called A Valediction, Forbidding Mourning. I've always loved the language in this poem, and I won't go over it in great detail right now, except that there's a line in there that says, movement of the heavens, i.e., days turning, the stars moving. Movement of the heavens brings harms and fears. Men wonder what it did and meant. Then goes on to say, trepidation of the spheres, though greater far, is innocent, but that's not important. Men wonder what it did meant. That's what we're doing here. I'm recompiling my 2024, and I'm taking examples of the high points to wonder what it did and meant. One of the more powerful experiences I had this year was in Hot Spring, Arkansas, where I got to see and experience what it was like in the totality of an eclipse. Something that I have been hearing about for decades is a transformational, transcendent experience. And I was lucky enough to be invited by Atlas Obscura to come down to Hot Spring, Arkansas, where they had a huge festival headlined by Fred Armisen and a bunch of other amazing folks. And I got to experience the totality out there in the middle of a field in Hot Spring. And it was, as advertised, transformational, transcendent. And the second I saw that ring of fire around the black spot where the moon was obscuring our sun, I burst into tears. I had been saying up until that moment that this event, this eclipse, would contextualize our local neighborhood of the universe to us. It would give us a physical understanding. And even though I was saying that, I really had no idea how much the physical understanding would enter me and change me. And it really did. That was spectacular. But that is the only event I'm covering this year. Let's go through this list in no particular order. I have a couple of favorite toys this year. One was the robotic Buzz Lightyear, a fully bipedal, self-balancing, talking, conversing robotic toy. I just found a picture of my office from Bartlett Street here in the Mission from like 20 plus years ago, where on the shelf I had one of the first Buzz Lightyear dolls. I remember specifically going to the Toys R Us on 4th and Mission back then to buy the Buzz Lightyear as soon as it was available because I love the form factor. This modern Buzz Lightyear robot, amazing. Also, our friends at Haslab continue their incredible onslaught into human joy with their new 2 in the box, which includes the PKE meter and a trap with a pedal, but I only have 2 hands, so I'm showing you these things. Haslab continues to celebrate adult budgets with childlike glee. Not to say these are crazy expensive, but dude, it is a great moment in time to be a cosplayer. I keep saying this, I keep having opportunities to say it. Thank you to the Haslab folks for keeping us in the loop, apprising us of their progress, asking for our advice, and mostly just being an excellent group of friends, part of the extended Tested family now. We covered a pretty gigantic book earlier this year, which was Lee Unkrich, J.W. Rinsler's book about The Shining, put out by Taschen as a limited edition, 2,500 copies, 20 pounds of material in a giant box. One of the most beautiful bits of media on the medium of film I have ever experienced. J.W. Rinsler and Lee Unkrich did an incredible job assembling so much brand new material that I think 75 or 80% of the material in that Taschen book has never been seen before. Now, we got some guff in the comments when we covered that because those books were up to thousands of dollars and there was only 2,500 of them in the world. So I was telling you about how great a book was that there was only 2,500 extant copies. And I had feelings about that. But I also knew that Taschen would be releasing a trade version of their book, and they did. Here it is. And it includes all of the major stuff that was in the first book, just in a much more reasonable form factor. These go on sale, I believe, on Christmas Eve for like $125, give or take. It includes the 900-page show diary, printed like a Bible, literally on Bible paper. The color fidelity of the color images inside this are magnificent. Also the layout, I mean, Taschen is such a gold standard of this kind of thing. Incredibly readable, dense volumes of beautiful information, written in visual. This is spectacular. One of my favorite book objects I have ever possessed. And then they took a lot of the other stuff and held it all inside a volume, imitating the look of the scrapbook with a bunch of the opening pages of the scrapbook, and then including tons and tons and tons of production photos. Again, 75 to 80% of this stuff has never been seen before, and it's so much more approachable. I know $120 is still real money. If you are a serious film aesthete, this belongs in your library. That's full stop. I want to tell you, when I finished reading this, and I read it, it really was one of my all-time favorite books last year. I finished reading it, and my brain was like, you worked on The Shining. And I was like, yep, I worked on The Shining. I know all the things you need to know about working on The Shining. I was there. That's what it feels like. That's how deep Rinsler and Unkrich got, interviewing every living person who had spent time on The Shining set. Oh my God. There is a moment in this book when Stanley Kubrick, on his third attempt to get the footage he wants of Jack Torrance driving his Volkswagen up through the mountain roads towards the Overlook Hotel, has finally found a helicopter pilot he thinks can do it. And he's in an office in London talking to this helicopter pilot who's got a helicopter parked right outside the Overlook Hotel where he wants these shots. And Kubrick has taken images of where that helicopter pilot is standing, and he's pasted them around his room. And he's on the phone and he's going, look, if you're looking at the hotel's roof line, there's a taller tree just to the edge. I want that to be the far edge of your frame. Like, Kubrick is building a virtual space from which to direct a person that is thousands of miles away from him. And this is in the mid-70s. It's an astounding document. It is really worth your time. I read the other two books I want to give you are science fiction books, and they're not single books. They are series. Both of them given to me by a friend. One is the Murderbot series. The first three are quite quick. The last two are a little bit more meaty. In this future that the Murderbot books take place in, interplanetary travel is regular and people go, and robots, bipedal robots that are highly intelligent, are all over the place. And if you want a really highly intelligent bipedal robot, you have to give it a little bit of actual flesh and bone and some neurons. And so Murderbot is this. Murderbot is effectively a hired bot slave that will do whatever you tell it to, but has just enough brain neurons to have anxiety and depression, which actually tracks to exactly how I think that would probably work out. And Murderbot is also highly androgynous, does not identify or give you any clue as to whether they look like a male or female. They don't really have any parts to speak of that identify that. And there is a really specific way in which I think there's been a lot of science fiction that has been written as a metaphor for adolescence, for coming into one's own as an adult. I think one of the most interesting things that's happened in the past couple of decades is that we now understand, with the myelination of your brain and how it all nets out, is that adolescence occurs into your mid to late 20s. And the Murderbot Diaries are one of the first books I've read, or series that I've read, in which that metaphor of coming of age tracks just a little bit later. It's not like a young adult coming into their own. It's more like a slightly older adult. So it feels more like the metaphor of your late teens to your mid-20s that Murderbot is going through. Not being comfortable talking to people, not being comfortable having them see their face, and yet also being a highly tactically precise, incredibly dangerous object / entity slash sentient thing. Murderbot Diaries, endlessly great. I particularly love Art, who is one of Murderbot's best friends. Art is simply a large ship with a tremendous amount of processing power. Art's a great character, and their interactions with each other are spectacular. Can't recommend the Murderbot Diaries enough. The second one I want to tell you about are, I think, what's called the Locked Tome books. The first one is Gideon the Ninth. The second one is Harrowheart the Ninth. The third one is Nona the Ninth. These books, the Locked Tome, I'm not going to say trilogy because there's another one coming and I'm really wanting to read it. I plowed through all of these this summer on a vacation in Cape Cod, and they are each of them big, dense books, but they deliver what the greatest science fiction does. New ways of looking at things. The story itself ties all the way back around to our current world in some really spectacular ways. The second book is written in the second person, i.e. you do this, you do that, which is very far out from a frame. The only other time I feel like I've read in the second person is a Lori Moore short story called How to Be a Writer. But it's not even a short story. It's more just like it's an amazing little piece. But the Locked Tome trilogy also includes some really lovely jokes that are highly modern, and to a certain extent, their modernity within this science fiction frame feel almost like a breaking of the fourth wall. Just to give you an overview of what the Locked Tome trilogy is, it's like 10,000 years in the future, and it is your basic lesbian necromancer epic drama. No, I know it's like, it doesn't sound like something I would be like, oh, I got to read me that. And yet it's just really great. I'm not going to give you too much plot stuff about it because it's really worth going in cold. There's a lot to figure out. I had to read the wiki at the end of the third volume to understand some of what went on because it gets quite dense. But I fell in love with all of these characters. And what more can you ask from a book? The Locked Tome books. Movies. There were a couple of movies that really gave me that feeling of why you go to the movies. And I saw all three of these movies in the theater. Yes, I did. I think they're the only three movies I saw in the theater. But, still you can trust me here. The first one I want to cover is Dune II, which will go down in history as one of the great sequels. Just a fantastic addition to the Dune universe, the Dune world. We've covered so much Dune on this channel, and I love the franchise so much. I'm not going to go deeply into Dune 2. Great performances all around by everybody, but mostly just like going back to that world was really good. I can't wait to go back a third time. I really hope Denis Villeneuve gets his third Dune movie up and running. The other two movies I was really excited about. One was Furiosa, which I was late to see, with Anya Taylor-Joy. Furiosa is fantastic and a fundamentally different film than Fury Road. Fury Road is just an unending chase. And Furiosa, while also you could classify it as a chase, here's my recommendation of it. I watched it twice in the same weekend. I saw it in the theater and then I came home and I streamed it. That's how much I really liked it. Like, I just wanted to watch it right away again. The performances in it, Anya Taylor-Joy does fantastic work. So does Alila Brown, who plays the young Furiosa. A fantastic job. And you spend some time with the young Furiosa, and then there's a transition to the Anya Taylor-Joy, slightly older Furiosa. The first time I saw the movie, I didn't track when that shift happened. It just sort of like, oh, I guess, like, it happened before I noticed, which was really cool. The supporting characters, Charlie Fraser plays Mrs. Mary Jabasa, and she's the first person from the The Green Place of Many Mothers to chase after young Anya Taylor-Joy's character. Fantastic performance out of this person. She's just wonderful. Elsa Pataki, plays two different roles. Chris Hemsworth's Dementus is astounding. I want to say, I watched the first trailer way back when, which was a teaser trailer for Furiosa, which just had Chris Hemsworth on a microphone, talking into the microphone. But he's got this big, crazy nose right on the middle of his face. And I was looking at this footage and thinking, who is this person? Who is this? Who has this much charisma? And I've never seen them in the film frame before. And then, of course, it turns out to be Chris. An astounding performance. He brings... Dementus is not the most complex character as written. Hemsworth brings a tremendous amount of depth to that written character. And he has a speech towards the end of the movie where you sort of get to experience, by the way he's talking, to a degree, the tragedy of everybody's experience in this world, in this universe of the world collapsing. He brings that out of his performance. It's incredible. The other movie, which I loved, completely different movie. I've been covering a ton of science fiction so far. The other movie I loved this year was Challengers, the tennis movie. Mark my words, in 10 years, we'll be talking about Challengers as like, dude, that movie absolutely slaps. Challengers is starring Zendaya, Mike Faist, who was the best thing in West Side Story, and Josh O'Connor, who was also amazing as Prince Charles in the second and third seasons of The Crown. It was delightful to see Josh O'Connor after seeing him play a simpering young Prince Charles, mummy, all of that stuff, to playing like a hot piece of garbage to a certain extent. And he really just like chews on that scenery. But it really is. So Challengers is about three different professionals at three different parts of their careers, and each of them having very different kinds of careers and the ways in which they support and don't support each other in that. And without... I'm really grateful for this movie for not having any overt sex scenes, which I find exhausting these days. But what I will say is the movie itself is hot. Like, the movie is sexy and it's got a vibe, and the vibe is really kind of lovely. All of the actors do incredible work, and I want to do a shout out to the special effects. They didn't have any tennis balls on set. I mean, I'm not sure they didn't have any tennis balls on set, but when they're playing tennis, they're swinging rackets, but there are no balls. They added the balls later. And to be fair, the tennis looks fantastic. I'm not a professional tennis player. I'm not even an amateur tennis player. But the tennis comes out really, really great. And the viewpoint of the ball, which is one of their regular refrains, it's very involving. Challengers, mark my words, we'll be talking about that movie in 10 years. There's two podcasts I would love to cover this year. One of them is, and I might have even mentioned this one last year, but it still bears repeating, If Books Could Kill. If Books Could Kill is hosted by Peter Shimshuri and Michael Hobbs. Every month or so, they find a piece of popular nonfiction, whether it's Bohos in Paradise or Outliers or What's Wrong with Kansas, and then they basically, for almost every book they examine, they find the hidden white supremacy inside. It's really sort of a regular refrain. It's all one book. But I just love listening to these two guys go after this material. They have incredible minds. They have a wonderful outlook on the world. They're actually pretty generous, I think, in their assessment of people's motives. And they're funny. I find myself listening to these episodes over and over again. I find them very re-listenable, which is great. I like taking in stuff multiple times. Is sort of one of my refrains. And the second podcast I want to talk about, dude, I just can't get enough of this. And this was recommended to me by tested producer Joey Fameli, Going Rogue with Tansy Gardam. Tansy Gardam is an Australian film critic, filmmaker, who started by making a 4-hour podcast series on the difficulties of the production of Going Rogue. And then I'm guessing that was successful enough that Going Rogue became the rubric for any movie she wanted to talk about. And she's talked about a whole bunch of them, from Cinderella to The Creator to Megalopolis. But let's just go back to Going Rogue. She covers the difficult production of Going Rogue, which involved tons of reshoots. It involved real difficulty with ILM adjusting to Gareth Edwards' preferred pipeline for production. But she's also incredibly, I talked about generosity, she's incredibly generous to the filmmakers she covers. And I have in my head this idea that she's holding in her mind that she's going to talk to these folks one day. And so when she is talking about parts of movies or things that she didn't like or the director's choice that she shot that she thought was bad, she still gives you the full context for how they made that decision, how that thing came about. And I really believe that anybody she's not denigrating anybody in the podcast, but I believe if she's expressed a negative opinion, it's not like that person's out there being like, oh, I really am so mad at Tansy Gardam. I feel like she's incredibly fair. And that fairness, which also includes her giving her own opinions about stuff that might be different than yours, and she's very careful with that. It feels very professional. It feels very loving. It feels like what she really wants to talk about is just how much fun the movies can be when they're great. And don't we all agree on that? And yes, we totally do. My God, her deep, deep, deep love of the Pirates of the Caribbean movies has made me go back and watch them. And I want to thank her for that. She also has this great thing where she says, if you want to email me, you can email me at, and then she gives her email address. And she says, if you don't like what I did, please don't email me. I have anxiety and that doesn't help with it. Like, I feel like we all need that disclaimer on anything that we're doing. I cannot gush enough about Tansy Gardam. She's also funny, really funny, like genuinely hilarious. And her assessment of pop culture and the way in which she brings it into the discussion of film and how these things come about and how films get made. And she decided just to cover one production where, it's not like the film came out bad. She does a How to Train Your Dragon breakdown that's... I'm running out of expletives, but I've never run out of expletives. I'm running out of encomiums to give. Going Rogue, just like If Books Could Kill, one of the most re-listenable podcasts. I have listened to every episode of it at least twice, and some of them more than that. Okay, let's see. Where are we at here? Television. Yes, television. Okay. First thing to cover in television is Silo. I loved Silo. We got to visit the set. So you're really going to have to take my review of Silo with a big grain of salt because I love that show. But I also got to go visit the set where they really sort of welcomed us like members of the family and took us around and talked about the costumes and the sets and the production and the writing and the performance. And Rebecca Ferguson, one of the executive producers and also the star, was so kind and generous. I love that show. I haven't even started on season 2 because I've been saving it for the Christmas break. And Silo was just awarded for seasons 3 and 4. If you haven't watched it, I just exhort you. Also, great performances all the way down from Tim Robbins, Common. Steve Zahn is in the second season. And I want to say that, like, in the second season, Steve Zahn and Rebecca Ferguson have a whole bunch of scenes together. And they both described it to me with the same kind of unhinged joy of what it was like. Basically, they both said it was like performing a Beckett play together every day for weeks. That's how much they loved the writing, that's how much they loved the characters, and that's how much they loved what was going on between those characters. It's great. I also really loved True Detective Night Country. I know it is a controversial choice. Joey is smiling behind the camera. Night Country is I describe things a lot as a fever dream. Night Country is absolutely kind of a fever dream. And I think one of the main complaints about Night Country is how they stick the landing. I can see why those complaints exist. I was fine with how it stuck the landing. I want to call out some of the performances. Kali Reese, world champion boxer, professional ass kicker, is a remarkable actress who, in her role as State Trooper Evangeline Navarro, brings an amazing tonic to Jodie Foster's character. Jodie Foster does an insane job. Jodie Foster's been around our culture for so long. I needed reminding watching Night Country. I'm like, oh my God, this is a movie star. Like, I'm watching her doing things. There's this point at which she like pulls off her nightcap, her cap, and turns towards the camera and opens her eyes and blinks. And I just thought, this person knows exactly how the light and the camera are all conspiring to help her face tell a story. And she's telling us the story with like decades of professional rigor in this performance. They also light Jodie Foster to make her look so old. She is a warrior. It's all this harsh top light, and they're all filming. Have you ever taken a picture of your wife and she's like, don't take a picture from under my face? They filmed Jodie Foster so much from here, like the cardinal rule. And she still delivers under that duress. I could imagine a spectacular performance. Also, Fiona Shaw is in there. You've seen her in Andor. You also, if you remember My Left Foot, I love Fiona Shaw. I love anything she does. Oh, she's also great in Killing Eve. And John Hawkes, who you might remember from 24 and Lost, also delivers an amazing and terrifying performance as kind of like one of the dumber, scary villains I have ever met, or one of the scariest dumb villains I've ever met. I also really dug the show Ripley, which is from the Patricia Highsmith books, The Talented Mr. Ripley. There are several of them. This was famously made into a movie 20 plus years ago by Minghella, starring Matt Damon. And The Talented Mr. Ripley with Matt Damon is phenomenal. It's a really important movie. And I was very curious to watch Ripley, the television show, and see how it would deal with the movie. Because you sort of have to. That movie it's not like it just disappeared in cultural memory. It's still really great. I watched it just a couple of years ago. And Ripley the show absolutely does, I think, make some hat tips to the movie, but braves wholly its own territory, and I think is a much more subtle and impressive attack on the material. Andrew Scott, who you might remember as the hot priest from Fleabag, and also Moriarty from Sherlock Holmes, one of the best actors we have going today. Ripley is shot in black and white. It is very luxurious. It feels like, I think this was in their mood board. There's a phenomenal John Huston movie called Beat the Devil with Humphrey Bogart and Gina Lollobrigida that was filmed over a summer. And I believe it was first advertised to me as John Huston and Humphrey Bogart and Gina Lollobrigida went to Italy for the summer and they came back with a movie. And if that sounds like fun, this Beat the Devil is exactly a movie that is that much fun. It was like, oh my God, they just must have had the best time of their lives making this hilarious, weird, fun movie. Ripley goes to a similar place of like, good God, filming in these locations in black and white with these amazing actors. Dakota Fanning is amazing. Gwyneth Paltrow played the role of the female foil for Ripley in the film. Dakota Fanning plays it in this, and she's phenomenal. Dakota Fanning's doubt about Ripley just drips off of her. In the original film, there's a friend of Ripley's crush who shows up, named Freddie Miles. And Freddie Miles is performed by Philip Seymour Hoffman. And like at the moment this movie came out, most people's knowledge of Philip Seymour Hoffman was from movies like Boogie Nights. And then Ripley comes out and Hoffman shows up in this Freddie Miles role, almost unrecognizable, with all of this sexual charisma and like entitled power of being like the young scion of a rich family. All this flows off of his characterization of Freddie Miles. And so I was really curious how Ripley the show was going to approach the Freddie Miles character And dude, they knocked it out of the park. Wait, I wrote it down here. Elliot Sumner, who's the child of Sting and Trudy Styler. Elliot Sumner plays Freddie Miles. And they turn in this androgynous performance with a similar amount of sort of self-assuredness and sexual power to it, from a completely different frame than Philip Seymour Hoffman was bringing. It's really an incredible characterization. And I know that it was controversial too. I know a lot of people did not take to it, but all I want to see is more stuff with Elliot Sumner in it, because that performance blew my mind. Okay. I've already done my favorite tools, but there's a few new technologies that came in this year that I just wanted to highlight. One is the Form Labs 4L printer. The 3L has been a staple of our resin printing for the last couple of years. The 4L really takes that and bumps it up significantly. We were turning out prints like that. First of all, the hollowing software and the print fidelity and the parts we're getting out of the 4L are both beautiful, and they're happening really, really fast. We're doing like full heads of me in 2.5 hours, which seems to me like science fiction. There's also clear stuff. I love clear stuff. Oh yeah, like we did, wait, here we go. We're working on my St. Edward's crown in clear. Now, I sprayed some Krylon clear coat on this because when you do that, you get almost glass smooth. It's pretty amazing. I love me the Form 4L. I think those are the main pieces of that. Yes. We did just get a Form SLS printer, but we have not been playing with it enough for me to cover it here in this video. Although we are quite pleased with the parts that it is currently turning out. Yes. Wait right there. This is the vacuum form machine. One of these was owned by my mentor, Mitch Romanowski, and a more beautiful, simple machine I had never and still have never seen. I love this machine so much, I built my own version of it. Fawn Davis and I, both of us loved this machine so much that we each made our own version of it. He was the first to spray paint his red, and then I followed. And then earlier this year, Theo Geisler, tested member Theo Geisler, said he had one of these, and he sent it to me. Theo, I can't thank you enough for adding this beautiful bit of kit to my shop. I have already done several vacuum forms on it, and it is just as I remember. It puts out really nice, crisp forms, and it runs on a really simple pair of light bulb coil heaters up in there. I'm so happy about this thing. Okay, also, I do a lot of costuming in this shop, and I've had all sorts and manner of different dressmaker dummies and forms. One of the best ones I have had up until recently was a fully milled out styrofoam version of myself that our friends at FBFX made me several years ago, and I have patterned several costumes off of that. But in this last year, Beatric Forms successfully built the software. They came out with this basically dress forms built off of scans of your own body. And that's what this is. As humbling as it is to have this magnificence on view here in the shop. And then when I said I had a scan of my head, they said, send us the scan and we can turn it in and fit it right on the mannequin. Dude, like what this affords me in terms of costuming, let's forget about the self-esteem part. And wait. Oh God, it gets even better. Hold on. Yes. They also make a half-scale version. And I will tell you that if you looked at their website and after you saw our videos, you thought, I want a full-scale version, but boy, that's expensive. It is expensive. It's completely worth it. Like that expense is what these things cost. And when they matter, that cost is important. And if you want to get out cheaper, half-scale mannequins. Beverly Downen has told me she's patterned many, many costumes off of the half-scale mannequin, and those patterns expand 2x just perfectly. She has a great pipeline working with half-scale mannequins. I'm so excited about this. And frankly, when Beatrice sent the foam heads, of course, I had to. It was like kind of required for me to put the foam head. There we go. Right? Wait. Almost. Here we go. We'll complete the picture. That's it. And so, yeah, that's what this sort of thing affords. There you go, mini-me. Please don't talk to me or my son ever again. A lot of you have been asking, how's the new shop? And by new shop, what I mean for those uninitiated, where I'm sitting now is the old shop. This is the shop you've watched me build everything in if you've watched me build stuff on Tested. The new shop is, this is about 400 square feet. The new shop is about 800 square feet, right over there. And in December of 2023, we gutted all the display cabinets that were in there. We brought in 22 feet of old Industrial Light and Magic model making Greebly walls, installed them, moved in some tools, and created a whole nother 2/3 of the shop. 800 square feet, 400 square feet. It's like, that's literally a tripling of how much space I have to work in. And what does that space give me? It gives me a great place to go stage my stuff as I'm working on it. It's not all sitting on one of two workbenches here in this space. That's huge. It allows me to actually sort stuff faster because I can see it all. I'm getting less piles building up in the corners, which is huge. But the most primary thing it has given me is the ability to bring in friends and collaborate with them in a much simpler fashion than both of us trying to work in this tight space with camera moving around. That's really difficult. So Fawn Davis came up and spent a couple of days detailing some spaceships with me. So much fun. I felt like Fawn and I grew up together practically. Even though both of us had been in effects for the better part of a decade before we met, it still felt like we were kids when we first met. And it was so much fun sitting here for a couple of days talking about model making parts with him. The other thing that this shop made possible was finishing my Raptor build. And I don't even think, we haven't even aired the third Raptor painting story yet, have we? No, when I built this Raptor in 2020, 4 years ago, I was always concerned about where she would get painted because she certainly can't go here. She's 16 feet long. And so I had considered that maybe we would have to rent a space for like a week to go paint her, but that was not ideal. Once this space became extant, once it became usable, I realized I can just push a workbench aside and my Raptor will fit in this entire space. And the video, which we haven't even put up yet, which you're about to see hopefully in the next few weeks, is me, my friend Michael Schupak, who's an amazing engineer, puppet maker, puppet wrangler, was Big Bird's wrangler for a long time, worked at Animax when we went down there to do research about my Raptor, and my great friend Gary Staub, dinosaur sculptor par excellence. And the three of us spent 3 days walking around this dino, painting her, and we had all the room in the world. And just that specific day, one of my favorite days that happened last year in the shop. But many of the favorite days were about the collaborations that this space really afforded. Those are all the external things that made my 2024 bright and luminous. They're all the things that fed me emotionally, creatively, personally. But I would be remiss if I did not say, as I think I do every single year, and it always occurs to me sort of at this moment, is to say, I'm here because of you. Nobody is more surprised than me to have spent 20 years making television only to then find myself executing narratives in this medium of YouTube, which is the new television. It's the new way we are watching things, and there will be others. And you know, as a lifelong freelancer, I am always just trying to adjust to where the market is and what's going on. And when the market shifted significantly in mid-2020 during the lockdown, what we ended up building here at Tested in terms of how we went about our business fundamentally changed us as a company. I think each of us as individuals, me personally, professionally, I've never been more creatively satisfied than I am right now in my life with the people that I get to work with and the ways in which I get to expand out the love and the kindness we feel here in this space to bring other people in, spread that around. And that is made possible by the fact that you are watching this. Those ad dollars and those subscription fees that you pay make so much possible for us telling these stories. They're the reason we get to go to England. They're the reason we get to travel around the world and cover incredible movie sets. Everywhere we go, we're welcomed like members of the family. And it's specifically because we are members of a family. And I think that the term parasocial relationship needs some more subtle refinement, because there are corners within this relationship that we're all having that is different and bigger and more interesting than just the word parasocial. I feel like we're doing something together, and I'm not sure what that is, but I'm really excited about it. And it is one of the real bright spots in many ways, a very dark time. That's the sum total of my politics you're going to get in this year's video. Thank you guys so much for watching, not just today, but all the videos that you watched. Thanks for telling your friends about it. Thanks for coming to the cons and telling me about how the work we've done on Tested has affected you, inspired you, sent you off down new paths of exploration. I love those stories. I love hearing them. I'll be hearing them again this year, just as I'll be seeing you guys in the very next video. So thanks so much for joining me. I'll see you next time.